After 7 years on the Egyptian throne, Cleopatra finally gets what she's been striving for: absolute power.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down the most ferocious, intimidating, and frightening pharaohs ever to govern the land of ancient Egypt.
The mighty pharaoh is holding a group of cowering Asiatic prisoners by the hair, in readiness to behead them with his axe.
Number 10. Thutmose III. Given the long line of Egyptian rulers, we know that Thutmose III was truly not to be messed with, as he's generally remembered as Egypt's greatest warrior king.
Even though he's pharaoh, he'll lead his men into battle.
In the annals, we get images of Thutmose III which show us he was prepared to go against the grain and to present himself at least as someone who was not some old fuddy-duddy ruler sitting in his throne room back in Egypt, but was out there in the field making decisions.
He's also considered to be one of the best and most influential high-level military figures of all time. After he initially assumed power when he was just 2 years old, his stepmother Hatshepsut ruled and then co-ruled until Thutmose's early 20s.
Her stepson, Thutmose III, is now poised to take control. He'd been pharaoh for nearly 20 years, but Queen Hatshepsut had kept him under her thumb. Now, in his 20s, he can finally realize his own ambition for a bold new empire.
Over the course of his elevated career, Thutmose spearheaded at least 17 victorious campaigns, all to expand his empire to unprecedented bounds. Cities fell to him, entire regions were converted to his rule. While perhaps there are other pharaohs tagged with more stories of specific outright cruelty, this was one king who simply refused to be beaten.
Under his 32-year rule, Thutmose expanded Egypt's empire with arrows, armor, chariots, and axes, and the blood of his soldiers. He was a brilliant tactician who never lost a battle.
Number 9. Ay. As the successor to the now world-famous boy king Tutankhamun, most of Ay's political career was actually spent as an advisor to multiple pharaohs before him, including Tutankhamun.
A skilled and determined civil servant, his name meant Divine Father.
And so, while he only ever ruled outright for 4 years, at some time around 1320 BCE, his story is shrouded in mystery. According to the most shocking claims, it's said that Ay might have had a direct hand in King Tut's death at just 19. Such was his desire to steal the throne from him.
At about the age of 20, the young pharaoh suddenly died. Some believe he was murdered.
He may have murdered his predecessor in order to create a power vacuum, which he promptly manipulated in his favor, with some suggestions that he also married Tutankhamun's widow just to shore up his credentials to become king. It's a tale of treachery that's never truly been confirmed, but the circumstances appear to cast Ay in a very shady light.
Ay reigned for only 4 years, and like Tutankhamun, had no heirs to carry on the 18th dynasty.
Number 8. Cambyses II. In 525 BCE, Cambyses II, the son of Cyrus the Great, successfully invaded Egypt, bringing Persian rule to the empire and marking a pivotal shift in its ancient history. His time in power, known as the 27th dynasty, was characterized by efforts to merge Persian and Egyptian cultures, although he's thought to have done so harshly. Cambyses is infamous for desecrating temples and outlawing traditional religious practices, all seemingly to weaken the societal fabric that had bound the Nile Valley for millennia beforehand. In one of the cruelest episodes of his takeover, it's also said that he ordered his army to march with animals that were sacred to the Egyptians, such as cats and sheep, along the front line. He effectively used them as a shield, knowing that the Egyptians he sought to conquer wouldn't want or dare to hurt the animals that they linked to the gods. Number 7. Cleopatra VII. She goes down in history as the last pharaoh, which might imply that Cleopatra's Egypt was in a much weaker state than it had been for thousands of years beforehand.
This is what she has literally been raised to do, which is to backstab her siblings. She is having to rule and to plan and to plot to turn herself into an iron-fisted monarch.
But that said, she's also regarded as having been a shrewd and intelligent leader, with a notably ruthless edge. Most famously, Cleopatra is said to have played a part in the deaths of 3 of her siblings. First, Ptolemy XIII, who she first married before he died during a civil war that she waged against him.
Political violence is a necessity of Cleopatra's position, both as a Ptolemaic queen of Egypt, but also as a player in the Roman Republic.
Then her sister, Arsinoe IV, was exiled and executed at her request, seeing as she was a threat to her power. And finally, after again marrying another of her brothers, Ptolemy XIV, it's said that she eventually poisoned him to make way for her son to rule in his stead.
Shortly after Cleopatra comes back to Egypt, Ptolemy XIV disappears from the record. Many historians believe that Cleopatra poisoned her brother.
The family dynamics here were complicated, but Cleopatra's determination to reign never wavered. Number 6. Seth Peribsen. Ruling during the Second Dynasty more than 2,600 years BCE, at a time when divine favor was paramount, Seth Peribsen is a leader whose reign is shrouded in mystery. Most notably, though, there was a seeming and crucial name change, with this ruler choosing to honor the ancient god Set, or Seth, rather than the traditional Horus. Modern interpretations tend to have Set as the god most associated with chaos and violence, where Horus is seen as an emblem of continuity and protection. Seth Peribsen's apparently deliberate distancing from Horus in favor of Set has led some to claim that his time as pharaoh was also fueled by chaos, that his Egypt was hugely divided by brutal war and fighting. That said, however, there is so very little that's truly known about him. Number 5. Khufu. Much of Pharaoh Khufu's reputation for wickedness springs from the writings of the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who considered him an evil king and a tyrant. Today, there's one world-famous piece of evidence toward that tyranny still standing: the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid of Khufu is the tallest, largest, and most enigmatic of all the pharaonic constructions.
The only remaining wonder of the ancient world, the pyramid was originally built as a tomb for Khufu. It's thought to have required a rotating workforce of 100,000 people to construct it, though, all of them enslaved by Khufu under horrendous working conditions. For Herodotus and others, it was just one huge and unforgiving vanity project. Given how iconic the Great Pyramid is today, the story behind how it got there is sometimes lost. But Khufu, a man who's said to have sent his own daughter to the brothel to raise money when he needed it, was clearly a callous figure. Number 4. Khafre. They say like father like son, and when your father is Khufu, perhaps you have a lot to live up to. Nevertheless, by most accounts, Khafre followed on from where his pyramid-crazed parent left off, again seemingly treating his people with very little worth. Most of what's written about Khafre also derives from the early work of Herodotus, although it should be said that even he was writing some 2,000 years after the fact. Still, Khafre's reign was marked by a massive amount of building work, said to have been carried out by huge armies of enslaved people. The second largest pyramid at Giza is Khafre's, and there are even some theories that the Great Sphinx is meant to be a depiction of him as well. But as to exactly how they came to be, it may have all been the result of one man's ruthless demands. Number 3. Sneferu. The era of Sneferu, the first pharaoh of Old Egypt's 4th dynasty, is remembered as another golden age of pyramid building.
Though unknown today, he was the greatest of all the Egyptian pharaohs. He was Sneferu.
There were multiple major pyramids erected under his watch, including what are today known as the Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid, the third largest of all pyramids behind those of Khufu and Khafre. Again, though, the labor force that was required consisted of tens of thousands of people. They faced grueling conditions, with many dedicating their entire lives and ultimately dying, all for Sneferu's eternal legacy.
He was pharaoh, but also a god on earth. And as a god, he needed a tomb that was the most magnificent creation the human mind could imagine. He needed a pyramid.
But his story is also one of relentless invasion and conquest. His armies raided all across North Africa, mostly to capture, imprison, and enslave the workers who eventually built Sneferu's many monuments. Number 2. Akhenaten. For better or worse, Akhenaten made an impact.
His reign was a revolutionary departure from the long-entrenched traditions of Egyptian kingship. Scholars still struggle to understand this pharaoh. Was he a fanatic or a great reformer, a visionary or a madman?
His lasting legacy is the attempted destruction of almost all traditional beliefs in a bid to establish Atenism or sun worship as the dominant religion. Before Akhenaten, the empire had been very much polytheistic, with countless gods to draw upon. But during his reign, all of that was outlawed.
As if to complete the transformation of Egyptian religion, the pharaoh changed his name from Amenhotep to Akhenaten, which meant servant of the sun god Aten.
And sometimes aggressively outlawed as well. Temples were abandoned en masse, and those who had attended them had no choice but to convert. Life under Akhenaten's eye was seriously tough and usually short. Today, there's some debate around whether Akhenaten is unfairly remembered, and whether we should instead view him as the world's first individual. But for Egyptians at the time, his actions were enough for him to be branded an unbridled heretic.
Akhenaten died in 1334 BC, during the 17th year of his reign, and with him died his religion, based on the worship of the sun disk. Soon after, there was a tremendous backlash against his religion and heresy, which led to the destruction of anything that bore his name.
So much so that his name was almost written out of history completely in a bid to forget what was considered the worst of times. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Ramesses II. As is becoming clear, the legacies of the Egyptian pharaohs are very rarely so straightforward as to deem any of them simply good or bad.
Perhaps the most extraordinary pharaoh of all was the great warrior King Ramesses II, remembered simply as Ramesses the Great.
But with Ramesses II, we have one of the most divisive figures of all. He's also remembered as Ramesses the Great thanks to his long 66-year reign, during which the new kingdom of Egypt enjoyed a steady period of power and success. To achieve that, though, he was another who brutally enslaved his prisoners and continually invaded as many others as he could.
During his long reign, he procured a formidable reputation as a warrior, a fact borne out by contemporary depictions.
Only Thutmose III embarked on more military campaigns than Ramesses, who was again always successful. A hero to many, he was a tyrannical threat to many more. He's also generally believed to be the crazed pharaoh as seen in the Bible's book of Exodus, a mark on his reputation that simply never rubbed off.
If Ramses is the pharaoh in the Bible, then his portrayal is less than flattering. But by his own people, Ramses was accorded almost godlike status.
Which other pharaohs could have made this list? Which other stories of ancient Egyptian rule frighten you half to death? Let us know in the comments.
Whatever the reason, it casts Thutmose, the man known as Egypt's Napoleon, as an enigma. A complex man struggling with his own demons.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.